Welcome to Topper Talk, your number one Western Kentucky athletics podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Moffitt, and I'm joined by co-host Tyler Bailey. Hilltopper Nation, whether it's happening on the hill or on the road, grab those red towels, stand up and cheer, because it's up next on Topper Talk. Welcome back, and thank you for downloading and listening to another episode of the Topper Talk podcast, the official podcast of the Red Towel Trust Collective. As always, follow us on all the social medias, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. Just search Topper Talk. You'll find us on any and all of those. And this podcast is sponsored by the Fireman Moving Company. They are the official moving company of WKU Athletics. Not only can they be trusted to move all the coaches in and out of Western, but they can move you anywhere nationwide. The Fireman Moving Company is owned and operated by firemen and is founded by WKU alumni. If you're looking to move sometime soon, give them a call at 270-791-1755 and get yourself a free quote. And I promise you it'll be the best call you make if you have any moving needs. As always, I've got Tyler here with me, man. Tyler, you ready to jump into a big, fun episode?
Yeah, man, we got a good interview coming up. It should be a lot of good information. So, yeah, let's jump on into it, man.
Before we do that, let's get caught up with our Red Towel wrap-up, which catches us up on all the athletics that we've missed since we last recorded. And that, as always, is brought to us by Trent Bedding Company. Let's get a word from them and then jump into it.
Don't forget your headboard, pillows, and your sheets. We got everything you need for a good night's sleep. Number one on the same check, best of Bowling Green.
All right. Hey! Twin, full, queen, and king. Mattresses for anything. Come and pick it out and we can bring it to your house. Have you sleeping real good before the weekend's out. Trent Bedding. It's just like a mattress store. Hey.
I'm really good. This camera can't see. The fans can't see what I do when the music's playing on the intro and on that right there because I'm kind of busting it down, hitting that whip and that nay-nay sometime. So moving into the first one, WKU softball played at Ole Miss, won game one to a score of 3-0, lost game two, 11-3, and lost game three and the series 12-3. Softball is 25-15-1 overall, with a 10-5 record in Conference USA play.
Hey, game one, they were supposed to be SEC now. Yeah, we went to their home and beat them. Thought we might have a chance to win the series. Softball is playing pretty good right now, but they end up losing the last two games of that series. But still, overall, 25-15 on the season. That's pretty good. 10-5 in Conference USA play. I'll take it, man. Let's finish this season strong.
Indeed. WKU baseball played Sam Houston, won game one 7-5, lost game two 10-0, won game three 8-7. Baseball then played USI yesterday and won 2-1. Baseball is 26-12 with an 8-4 record in Conference USA play.
Yeah, the baseball tops are just remaining hot. They've been on a hot streak. Won another series. That second game they got blanked. In the third game, they were down early. Came back and won that game. And then had a midweek yesterday versus USI up in Evansville. Beat them 26-12. Man, just Coach Rardon and that squad are getting it done. 8-4 in Conference USA play. Man, they are making some noise, and I'm excited to see how this season ends.
I think my wife maybe. Hang on real quick. All right, so men's golf at the Mountaineer Invitational hosted by WVU. Team finished third out of 15. Stephen Warren, he tied for 12th. Gage Dull tied for 16th. Luke Fuller tied for 21st. Nick Hoffman tied for 25th. And Connery Myers tied for 81st.
Yeah, men's golf, upward trajectory right now. I think that was their third top three finish in a row. So, hey, looking good, playing good. Let's keep that rolling as well.
Women's golf at the Conference USA Championship, team came in third, eighth top three finish of the season. Katie Craig, as always, led the way for fourth. Addie Westbrook and Avery Klein tied for 13th. Sarah Arnold tied for 17th, and Sydney Hackett tied for 26th. Katie Craig named to the Conference USA Women's Golf All-Tournament team. She just keeps getting them accolades heaped upon her.
Yeah, she's Katie Craig doing Katie Craig things, man. She is the GOAT right now on the the women's golf team. She's always leading the charge, near the top of the leaderboard, in fourth in the conference. Obviously, we wish she had been a little bit higher. The team themselves, we came in ranked first in the conference, so we thought we would have a chance to pull out a victory, but still finishing top three. Can't be mad at that. The whole team had a pretty good showing. So, women's golf, a lot of promise there, a lot of good young talent on the team. So, let's see where that goes in the future.
The tennis team finished the regular season at number 63 FAU and lost 6-1. Dante Allen and Brandon Newman. This is going to be some sad news. Dante Allen and Brandon Newman both officially entered the basketball transfer portal. Also, Coach Robert Guster and staffer Isaiah Brooks both followed Coach Lutz to Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I think we alluded to that a little bit in previous basketball episodes when we were talking about the roster, some of the changes that might shake out with it. We mentioned that there were a few seniors that went through senior night that had decisions to make on, if they want to exercise extra years of eligibility that they had left, or go play pro somewhere, or transfer and possibly continue playing college basketball. And two of those guys we were talking about, Dante and Brandon, have both decided to enter the transfer portal. And while that does not mean they are gone, it means they have a foot out the door. So if they do not return, obviously we wish them the best of luck. We enjoyed Dante the last couple seasons. Brandon just 1 year coming over from Purdue, following Coach Lutz here. They previously had a relationship when Coach was an assistant there. Then the couple coaches, Coach Guster and staffer Isaiah Brooks, going with to Oklahoma State to follow Coach Lutz there. Can't be mad at them for taking an opportunity to move up the ladder and kind of see where that takes their career. So best of luck to all those gentlemen and wherever they may land for next season.
Going back to ladies golf. Death Taxes, Katie Craig was named to the Conference USA Golfer of the Week after her runner-up finish at the Chattanooga Classic.
Yeah, I think that was the sixth time of the season, 6 out of maybe 9 weeks or so. I think that she's been named the Golfer of the Week. So just to kind of put a stamp on how good this spring season has been for her. I mean, she's been at or near the top of the leaderboard every single week, every single tournament. She's just been as consistent as the sunrise and the sunset. Death Taxes and Katie Craig, top 3, like you said earlier. She's that good. Really appreciate all her efforts and everything she did for our golf team this spring.
WKU Tennis plays at the Conference USA Championship starting this Thursday. We play Friday versus La Tech. WKU basketball did get a commitment from Julius Thedford. He's a 6'3" shooting guard from Memphis, Tennessee. He was previously committed to Missouri State. WKU baseball entered the 11.7 mid-major top 25 at number 24. WKU football portal entrance from Ricky Davis Jr. and Anthony Johnson. And WKU football got a commitment from offensive line Blake Austin, transfer from Troy University.
Yeah, a lot there at the end. Conference USA Tennis Championship starts at the end of this week.
Mm-hmm.
Starts Thursday. WKU plays Friday against Louisiana Tech. Hopefully we can make a little noise, go on a little run, maybe surprise somebody. Basketball with another commitment. We had Braxton Bayless that we talked about last week. We got one. This guy's from Memphis, Tennessee, so comes from a good basketball area. A lot of talent there. Really blew up on the summer circuit last year. He had previously committed to Missouri State. They fired their coach after the season. He decommitted, and now he's a Hilltopper. So we're excited to bring him on as another freshman with Kate Unsold next year. Then baseball entering the top 25 as a mid-major. They haven't been there in quite a while. So keep winning games, climb up those rankings, maybe make a little noise. And then the football, the football portal, it giveth, it taketh away. We had a couple guys enter, Ricky Davis Jr. Then Anthony Johnson, Ricky Davis didn't play a lot, but Anthony Johnson was a cornerback that had 4 interceptions last year, and I think he was one of the top graded cornerbacks in the nation. Hate to see those guys potentially go. Again, they're in the portal. They're not necessarily out the door, but they are looking at options that may be other than WKU. So if they leave, we wish them the best of luck. And then we did get a commitment from an offensive lineman, Blake Austin, transferred here from Troy University. Followed his offensive line coach from there, who's now our offensive line coach here. So really excited for what that may hold. Obviously the offensive line has lost a couple pieces. We'll need to plug some holes. So hope he can come in and immediately, help us out and protect that quarterback, whoever QB1 is.
That concludes the Red Tail Wrap-Up, brought to you by the Trent Bedding Company, located in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Yeah, our good friend Trent and little Trent there. Hopefully you saw the commercial, man, the banger that it is. A good Red Towel wrap-up, a lot of news, a lot of wins, a lot of accolades, just a lot of stuff going on. Spring sports are kind of coming down to near the finish line. Golf's getting done, tennis is near done, softball and baseball aren't far behind, track as well. So we'll continue covering those as the spring wraps up here. Obviously, we got spring football coming up real soon. But a good Red Towel wrap up as always. Now we had a chance for our main segment. We got to sit down with Willian Yanish, who is an NFL draft analyst for FirstRoundMock.com. Let's jump into that interview right now. All right, and we're joined by Willian Yanish. He's an NFL draft analyst at FirstRoundMock.com. So first of all, William, thank you and welcome to the show, man.
Definitely, man. I'm glad to be here. I mean, these things are fun, and talking football is fun. So it's all about.
Absolutely. And I like to do this in the intro. I don't like to wait till the outro for people to get to know a little bit about you. So where can people find you and your work that you do as an NFL draft analyst?
Well, First Round Mock is a website, but other than that, I mean, if you put my name in the search bar, I'm probably somewhere on Twitter and Facebook mostly, but I'm also on Instagram, and it's all the same, man. You just got to spell my name out and it'll pop up.
Absolutely. And how did you get started into draft analytics and evaluations?
I started as a fan, man. We were just talking about that, back when I was a kid watching, Joe Montana hold up that trophy. And, I mean, it was, it got there, and I ended up, meeting a guy that, worked in pro scouting, Daniel Kelly, and he's my mentor now. He worked for Parcells and Belichick, with the Jets there for a couple years in New York. I mean, I can't thank him enough for giving me this opportunity. But like I said, First Round Mock, and I've got one heck of a portfolio on there right now. So.
All right, man, that's pretty awesome. That's great to hear that. Let's kind of jump into some of the questions. Obviously, 2 guys from WKU are being regarded as potential draft picks, in which they are Malachi Corley and Austin Reed. Let's start with Malachi. He's 5'11", 215-pound junior, wide receiver from Campbellsville, Kentucky. He ended his career with 259 receptions for 3,035 yards with 29 touchdowns. He led the nation in YAC in 2022 and was second overall in his 3 years played for WKU. That was obvious strength of his, aka YAC King. So much is made of competition level, routes ran, usage, etc. Where do you start in your evaluation process for him?
The process, it always starts with the film. And, our unofficial model at First Round Mock is the film never lies, and you just start watching film, and, you understand what competition, he is up against, what kind of system that they run. You've got to factor that into the evaluation. And, I mean, everything on the film from, the games all the way to interviews and things like that, they can tell you a ton of things about who a prospect is and, what they can be as a player. and we just try to be the fairest that we possibly can, at first round mock, because overhype is a thing with players these days. And they're all these sports media, big companies and stuff, they're doing it for clicks, and it's actually hurting the kids more than it's helping them. I mean, when expectations get ultra high like that, they aren't able to adjust sometimes, and it's just one of those things. And but that's what we try to do, is give them the fairest possible grade. What works in the NFL, what we've seen work in the NFL, grade them, and I mean, just try to understand and how we feel about a player, at the end of the evaluation compared to what we saw, and I mean, that's the way we do it.
Absolutely. I think it's neat that one of the first things you mentioned was competition faced. You talked about system usage. We're going to talk about all that, but talking about the competition faced first, because, one, he played at WKU. He was loyal to this school. He had an opportunity to go and play basically anywhere in the nation after 2022. One, I think his loyalty says a lot about him, that he decided to stick it out at WKU. He didn't go chase money or go chase a bag to go to a P5. But being in that situation, he does only get so many opportunities to play versus those P5 competitions. In 2021, we played Indiana University. He has 9 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. We played Michigan State the very next week. He had 7 catches for 69 yards. 2022, we played Indiana again. He had 8 catches for 77 yards. And then we also played Auburn. He had 12 catches for 99 yards. And then this last year, we played at Ohio State. He had 8 catches for 88 yards and 1 touchdown. So a very small window compared to a lot of the prospects that he's being evaluated up against. But how does that body of work against that P5 competition, how does that, stack up for him versus maybe some of his, wide receiver counterparts that he's being evaluated against?
Well, statistics aren't always, they're a good way to tell, some things and how some things, could trend or come out, but they don't always tell the exact truth, but going up against that competition, in the offense that you're in, college ranges from, the Division II schools, all the way up to, Georgia, everything else. And the competition is so different, it's not like the NFL. In the NFL, everyone is good. And college, that it's a great sign to be able to show that you can do that against the top prospects in the nation, especially being on the team you're on, and if they're concentrating on you or what they're doing, which obviously Malachi Corley, they'd be concentrating on a little bit, you figure. But I mean, he did really well, and I mean, that's what I think. So I think that does him a real favor when it comes to being talked about in the media by some of these scouts and analysts and everyone else, so that's about it.
Well, speaking of media, the next question is former NFL wide receiver Steve Smith Jr. not so long ago did a breakdown interview with Corley, and the biggest topic of conversation was route tree and how WKU utilized him in their packages. What are your thoughts on this and the perceived weakness or gadget player label that has been placed on Malachi?
Well, see, that's the thing, the air raid offense, which, this is obviously based off of, there's not a whole lot, to the route trees, and it's meant to be, fast and explosive and run at an extremely high pace, and the plays are simple. I was just talking about this in an article, how simple the college defenses or offenses, everything is getting because of the transfer portal and what is happening, because the players are having to learn, these plays all over again, so when it comes down to the prospects, that gadget play, I mean, is Deebo Samuel gadget player? I mean, obviously you can look at his stats, and even being in an air raid offense, but you gotta think about how those defenses were treating him. Like I said, and he ended up, with 101 receptions in 202 or 2022, and 79 last year, and just the yards and double-digit touchdowns. I mean, he obviously is. I mean, like I said, he's not a gadget player. That's not a label to put on him, and it's going to be a step up. It doesn't help that there's a receiver class like this one. I mean, he's 7th, 8th down the line. However many might be taken. I mean, it's one of the most important positions this year. But that all has to be put into what he is as a player and who's going to utilize him. I mean, if he gets on a team like Kansas City or San Francisco or one of those teams that has an excellent supporting cast or an explosive offense. I mean, what if San Francisco gets him, and then you got to put up with Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and Malachi Corley? I mean, that's something that's a little bit scary. You got to think about. I mean, defensive coordinators would keep them up at night, having to do that. But Malachi's transition to the NFL will have a lot to tell, and being in a simple air raid offense might have an effect on that. But I mean, we'll see, because he hasn't shown that he might just be a gadget player, or he only excels against competition that's lesser competition.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talked about his usage and just what's asked of him in the WKU system, because he's a strong player. Obviously, when he gets the ball in his hand, he's tough to bring down. And since the season has wrapped up, he's competed at the Senior Bowl. He didn't get to go to the NFL Draft Combine. He had an illness, but he did have our pro day. And I know one of the key questions that he wanted to answer in front of all those evaluators, all those people that are seeing him play, maybe for the first time live, not just watching film. What they want to see him run, a more extensive route tree, not just those screens behind the line of scrimmage, not just those quick comeback plays, but just can he go over the middle, run a post, run a dig, run a slant, actually across the middle, just something that he wasn't asked to do a lot in the Western Kentucky system. Not that because he couldn't do it, but because we had other guys that could do it. And we want to get him the ball in space with blockers in front of him so that he could go make plays, break tackles, and gain a lot of yards. So, even since that pro day, he's been on a nonstop circuit, a schedule of visits with NFL teams for top 30 visits. So how do you think that the postseason circuit that he's been on now has helped or hurt Malachi in this draft selection process?
Oh, I don't think it's hurt him any at all, and I mean, missing the combine, maybe a little bit, but that's understandable for an illness. It's not kind of a red flag like it would be, if somebody else is missing it, or, like what happened with Caleb Williams, whatever. But I don't think that that's going to have an effect on where he is drafted. And I think that his play, speaks for all that. I mean, the stats, everything else. I mean, it's kind of outright, and it's kind of forthcoming. If you have, your pro day, everything else, you showed up, you did your stuff. I mean, you did your job, man. That's all you can ask.
I guess you're right. No, numbers don't lie. And if you can show out when the lights come on, I mean, I guess that's what really matters. We've seen several player comparisons for Corley, the most popular being Deebo Samuels of the 49ers. Another one is Anquan Bolden. What type of player comparison do you see Malachi as?
Oh, obviously, there's a Deebo thing there, but there's receivers like DJ Moore up in Chicago, and just I bring up that comparison because it's the way they run, low to the ground like a running back, and it's not like they run like a receiver, I mean they just tuck down and do their thing, and I mean that's that's about it. The Anquan Bolden thing, I mean goes up there, but I mean he was such a good player for such a long time that I can definitely understand that comparison. Other than that, I mean, there's another cookie cutter, sheet athletes, and then there's players like Malachi Corley and Debo Samuel and like some of those, that they're not traditional to their own position, but they work, in ways that however you can find them, just get them the ball in space and let them take off, let them do their thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the Anquan Bolden one was neat. I think that was a Phil Nagy at the Senior Bowl. I hadn't seen that one before, but after seeing it and remembering Anquan, just how sure-handed he was as a player, caught a lot of tough balls over the middle. Wasn't the type to absorb contact, was the type to inflict contact. And if you have, but in general, if other people have ever watched Malachi Corley highlights, tape, anything, there's been several times he could have taken the easy path to the end zone, but he chose to run through somebody. And that's that former running back in him. He was recruited to come to Western Kentucky as a running back and had a position change. And you can see that in his running for sure. I mean, he's just an aggressive, seeks out violence, and just inflicts pain kind of runner. I know everybody's seen that Louisiana Tech play, that where he just went out in the right off the sideline and just had that dump down, just looked like a safe dump down. Then he runs through somebody. The defense had given up. If the defense doesn't give up on that play, that's a 10, 15-yard gain. Everybody gave up because they're going to wrap him up. But, my boy Debo here runs through that guy and, 60 yards later, whatever it was, is a touchdown. So, man, all these player comps, I think it really just speaks volumes to the ceiling that he has if he's put into the right situation, the right system in the NFL. So as you're looking at Malachi's strengths and weaknesses heading into the NFL, what would you say are some of his top 2 or 3 strengths? And at the same time, we have to talk about some of the weaknesses as well. What are some weaknesses or some question marks, maybe you might say, leading into his draft potential?
Well, starting off with him, for weakness, I mean, he kind of runs he's not exactly totally crisp on his route running and that kind of thing. I mean, the guy's an absolute animal, but I think there's times when I saw a few either miscommunication between them or whatever, to where a ball might have been underthrown or something, to where he might have gone further on his route, something along those lines. The learning curve, obviously, we were just talking about that, and what it comes to the NFL, just it's a question mark. It's not, a knock or anything like that. And other than that, I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of things that can go wrong with Malachi Corley. I think he comes as advertised, into your offense, into your team, and that is who he's going to be. I don't think there are too many question marks behind him because he has done everything asked of him, plus obviously more, and he just seems like he's a great player. So there's that.
Now, before I get into this next question, I think I know where Corley should go in the draft, or where I hope he should. So I have my idea, but can you give us your overall draft grade and where you project Corley to be picked in this draft?
Oh man, I definitely, I actually went out in my evaluation that is coming out. That's one thing too, is my evaluations on my final on Austin Reed and my first on Malachi Corley are coming out like just next week sometime, right before the draft. And I actually called Malachi Corley special in, my evaluation, which isn't a word that I use a whole lot. But other than that, and he's a first round pick, but like I said, this is a deep receiver class. Might be the deepest ever. But I think one of the teams at the end of the first round, either Kansas City, somebody who needs one, 49ers. I mean, we always have receiver, complaining about something. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt to bring in more competition. One of those high flying offenses would be amazing. I mean, he would be something for Buffalo to bring in, since Stephon Diggs left, and I mean, Josh Allen, I mean, that'd be a pretty good fit. But, he's going to go in the, last of the first round or the beginning of the second. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you talk about him fitting with the 49ers. Biasly, I think it's not a secret. I would love for him to go to our 49ers. I know you agree with me there. Kansas City Chiefs have been thrown around a lot. Some of the other teams, I think, in the NFL, you mentioned the Bills, teams like the Eagles or the Rams, just those offensively unique and forward-thinking teams that really use all their skill players. They're just in a multitude of ways. They're not just, jamming the ball up the middle, running go routes. They're really being creative on offense. Other than the 49ers Chiefs, they're right there at the end of the first round. Are there any other teams or systems that you think would best utilize his skill set in the NFL?
Detroit would be an interesting one with Dan Campbell. I think that would. They don't have an overload of receivers up there either. They're kind of, traded off their tight end, their tight end. They ended up with another one, but that could be like Debo and Kittle, but other than that,
Yeah, I think that's a great one. Actually, I hadn't really thought of Detroit, but they've kind of been that team that's emerged over the last couple of years, and they have a good young core of players that, you add another explosive player to it, you're opening up the field for, Amon St. Brown and the running backs and the tight ends that they have. So
yep.
Really good insight there. I appreciate that one because I hadn't thought of them at all because I want him to go to the 49ers. He's going to go to the 49ers. I think he's in San Francisco last night and today, if I'm not mistaken, visiting. So I hope they fall in love and it's over with right there.
There you go.
Moving on, we're going to talk about Austin Reed as well. Obviously, all of our fans know him. He's a 6'2", 220-pound quarterback. He originally committed to Southern Illinois out of high school. Then he went to D2 West Florida, where he won a national championship. He came to WKU for a couple years. All he did was lead the nation in passing yards in 2022. He finished his career here at Western, having played 26 games. He threw for over 8,000 yards. He had 71 passing touchdowns, 22 interceptions, with a 63.2% completion percentage. So same question we posed with Malachi. Where did your evaluation start with a player like Austin Reed, who's, played at a couple levels now and played at a high level? Where did you start when you were looking at his film?
Well, I obviously knew the Western Kentucky system because I'm a Bailey Zappi fan.
Yes, sir.
It was my number 2 quarterback, that year. And I will say that it happened. And, but no, man. Like I said, with the film, I just had that, thing because I saw Zappi. I'm like, what can this kid do? So I started watching it, and, when you're evaluating a player, you're paying attention to only him on the field. Like it's like a completely different mindset than just watching a game. And when it comes to watching them, I didn't really notice Corley that much. He popped up now and then, obviously, but I mean, they have to be obviously extremely good to keep popping up on the film. I mean, Cade Stover does that for Ohio State, but other than that, I mean, there's a lot of difference there. But when I was watching him, I'm like, it was taken off on me. I'm like, who is this guy reminding me of? I mean, there was something in my head just watching him throw passes and such, and I couldn't figure that out for the life of me. But he had good footwork. Sorry about that. Got something in my tongue anyway. And got back, the timing, the anticipation, everything. I was watching this. I mean, even, spreading the ball around. And the one thing I really noticed about him is that, even up against, Ohio State, you know, at the end it was, you know, 63-10 or something like that. And I just saw this kid never quit, you know. I mean, I think he ended up with 1 touchdown. I think it was a rushing touchdown, actually, if I'm not mistaken. But that was just the thing with him, you know. Is I mean, I saw this player and I was like, man, I gotta. I saw something in him. I'll put it that way, and it'll show up in my evaluation. So.
Well, I tell you, I'm excited as hell to read that evaluation though on Malachi and Reed. I guess the next question is: the QB film gets broken down and criticized more than any other positional player, and so much of their production does depend on having a good offensive line. And a lot of QBs look great on a clean pocket. I mean, you put me back in a clean pocket with plenty of time to throw the ball, I'm going to look like Tom Brady, Joe Montana, you know. Take your pick. I'm going to be that dude. I'm built different with a clean pocket, but that next level of evaluation is seeing what happens when pressure comes and what happens when the first read isn't open, or how his footwork looks, or throwing mechanics, or even just reading defenses and finding the soft spots, or knowing the pressure will be coming to get the ball out. How does Austin evaluate from a mechanics standpoint?
From the mechanical standpoint, I mean, he's got the quick release. Like I said, the footwork, it definitely needed cleaned up a little bit. That goes into everything, you know, shifting your weight and throwing the ball, just everything, man, and accuracy and everything else. You know, that is a huge deal. I'm still old school into that, and I talk about it all the time. You know, you won't get me off of that talking about quarterbacks. You know, I mean, like I said, I grew up watching Joe Montana, and it just, he had the cleanest footwork ever. And I mean, Austin never took too many sacks. I mean, he was good at moving around, obviously not overly athletic, but, you know, he was good at climbing the pocket and, you know, avoiding so much. And, you know, I mean, getting the ball out quick to where it was living to play, you know, living to play another down, you know, and that was just how it was. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, you talked about his legs and being able to move in a pocket, being mobile. That's something that, and granted, we're not talking about a lot here either, because, you know, generally in quarterback evaluation, you want to talk about, you know, how well can they throw the ball, read defense, etc. But he showed a lot on tape, especially in 2022, that he's more than a willing runner if he has to. If you put him in that position, 3rd and short, 4th and short, you know, tush push if he had to. We didn't see a lot of it this last year. You know, he was wearing a big knee brace. He sat out the bowl game due to some injuries. He was trying to get cleaned up and feel better. So, you know, I feel like he played in high school as a linebacker. He has some, you know, physicality to him. Obviously, you don't want to put your quarterback in that situation, but he is more than a willing runner. If you put him in that situation, you draw up a play, a sneak, a draw, whatever it may be, you know, he's more than capable of picking up that ball in the first down. So I think it's nice that you mentioned, you know, he has that ability. Again, he's not going to blow you away with speed. He's not Lamar Jackson by any means, but he is more than capable of being mobile, getting a couple extra tough yards if needed, or just surprising you on a little bootleg, just something out there that, you know, just catching you off guard. You know, that's what good quarterbacks and good offensive systems do. Now, talking about Austin, you know, kind of the same as Malachi, he only had so many chances to perform against, you know, P5 competition. You know, against IU, he threw for 329 yards, 2 touchdowns and interception. Versus Auburn, again, 26 out of 55, 289, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Then last year versus Ohio State, 21 out of 37, 207 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So nothing overly hugely eye-popping there, but it's still that chance to compete against tougher competition. You know, how did those games and those plays, you know, on film look to you when you were looking at how he did?
Well, you know, watch him up against the competition, you know, and how it's going to translate to the NFL, you know, I mean, that's exponential on top of, you know, like I talked about Debo, you know, the learning curve going to the NFL, you know, that's exponential on top of the quarterback and learning a whole new system and knowing where everybody is, you know, not just not just, the one receiver or, yourself, whatever, maybe, knowing the plays, but knowing every spot on the field, then knowing the defense too and how to read them, So that comes up there. And I mean, it just, it's one of those things that's going to come down to what the translation is, and I mean, I see him, I had, great things to say about him, and I still do, I've got the article is evaluation is actually, it's a good one. And I mean, just who he is as a player and how he gets there is going to be on him, and what is between his ears.
Now, we're going to go back to a little bit of more player comparison. From a player comparison perspective, I think WKU fans see Reed as a big arm. He does take risk, type of QB at times, maybe reminiscent of a Brett Favre for the Green Bay Packer fans. Reminiscent of Brett Favre as taking risk and sometimes throwing bad interceptions. Who would you list as a player comparison for Austin Reed?
As a player comparison, like I said, I didn't want to blow it up earlier when I started talking about my evaluation on him, and I almost said, I was like, wait a minute, we're not going to do the player comparisons yet. But no, man, I mean, I was seeing this player, like I said, but back to that part, and I didn't know who it was, and it was really frustrating me. And finally, when I turned on, the film, watching it, about a week ago, I was like, man, that's Chad Pennington. He just reminded me of watching him there in New York, back in 1999 or, around that time. And it's like, the arm strength. I mean, maybe just the passes looked a little bit like his, something along those lines, the footwork. There was something there that really kind of clicked, and so that is definitely, I mean, sometimes I don't get into player comparisons because, I mean, sometimes that's not fair either. Like I was talking about, with some of the other things with hype and everything else. But I mean, that is definitely one that I put on him. So
I think Chad Pennington's an interesting one. One, because we have a lot of Marshall friends from our former conference alliance with them when they were in Conference USA, and I know them listening to this, they're going to love to hear that. I know a couple of the guys at least are going to listen. And Chad Pennington was a good quarterback. He played a long time in the NFL. He was successful in college. And if Austin Reed has any type of 10, 15 plus year NFL career like Chad had, and wins a lot of games like Chad did, I think that'll be, absolutely amazing. But it's just funny. I know me and Tyler both, when we heard that Marshall player get the comp there, I know we were both going, oh no, KD and Trace and just all the guys are going to say, hey, he wishes he could be Chad Pennington, man. Former,
right.
I think he was a Heisman finalist there at one point in the 90s when he was playing at Marshall. So good for him. I think, that's a good comp. I know Brett Favre is kind of that's a setting your sights high. I know I wrote that down just because he does have he has a strong arm, not the strongest arm. He's not Joe Flacco, he's not Brett Favre, but he's a little bit of a gunslinger. He's kind of loose with it sometimes. When you're watching film, you'll see a bad interception go the other way, and you're just like, what was he thinking? This guy's triple teamed, and he thinks he can get it. Yeah, exactly. He thinks he can get it in that window that's this big. If you were standing right in front of me, I couldn't have hit you that open. He's doing it 40, 50 yards down the field. But that's why we love him. That's why we loved him when he was here at WKU. Now, Austin chose to sit out the 2023 bowl game due to injury. Then he competed in the East-West Shrine Bowl as well as the NFL Draft Combine. Then he came back just a couple weeks ago, was at Pro Day here at Western. How has this postseason tour, how has it also helped or hurt him and his evaluation process for the NFL draft coming up?
Oh, well, I think it's definitely helped him, doing everything that he can, and I mean, that's like I mentioned about Corley, I mean, to do everything you can to, what they want, I mean, shows them that you're somebody, who wants to be, there, that wants to be out there. So.
For sure. What are some of the strengths and weaknesses that you have seen watching tape of Austin Reed?
Austin Reed, like I said, the toughness is one thing, you know, and the anticipation on his throws. I mean, those are definitely two things that really, you know, perked me up when I started watching him, you know, and just who he is, you know, as a player. I feel those are, you know, the two things about him that are the most important, you know, things, you know, that stand out.
I think this next question is going to be an interesting one because I've seen, before last season, you know, after 2022 ended, you know, you hear things, evaluations, and feedback he's getting from NFL teams. He, you know, considered testing an NFL draft. He considered transferring. Louisville was trying to lure him over there in the Jeff Brom system. You heard people throwing around second, third round grades for him. He decided to come back after leading the nation in passing in 2022. Came back and played for us again last year in 2023. Probably didn't play as I would say he took a step back as far as production and maybe, you know, what he put on film. And I think there are several reasons for that. You know, I know we had a lot of injuries at wide receiver. We had turnover on the offensive line. We had turnover with the offensive coordinator. There's just a lot of variables in there that go into, you know, and some injuries. We talked about he didn't play in the bowl game. He wore a big bulky knee brace all season. So, you know, there's a lot of variables of maybe why he took that step back. But I think, you know, he may have hurt his draft stock, you know, at the end of the day by coming back and playing another year. Obviously, we love that he did. He won some ball games. It was great for us. But, you know, given the full body of work here, you know, seeing him, you know, from West Florida to Western Kentucky for 2 full years, you know, what is your draft grade for Austin, and where do you think he may end up in this NFL draft?
I have a draft grade on him of the 3rd round. I had knocked that down in my first. I went all out in my first one, and he kind of, like I said, regressed a little bit. I mean, it wasn't the point that he regressed; it was just the point that he didn't take another step forward. You know, and I mean that was the biggest thing that I felt, you know, this last year. And I mean, as a player and everything else, I mean, you're either getting better or getting worse. You know, you're never staying the same. You know, that's what Daniel Kelly always says. You know, he always tells me that. And it's just the truth of how it is, man. You know, I mean, he is who he is, and I mean, he can play, but I mean, that's about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of Hilltopper fans will live with having a 3rd round quarterback being selected. You know, just right after we had Bailey Zappi selected a couple years ago. Obviously, those are big shoes to fill. Then you projected Malachi, you know, late 1st, early 2nd. I think again, a lot of Hilltopper fans would love to see 2 of our own Hilltoppers get drafted that high. So, William, man, I appreciate you coming on, talking a lot of NFL draft and these players. Guys that we have high hopes for going to the next level. We really appreciate you coming on, sharing some information and some knowledge with us. We'll tag you when we post this, and we'll tag all your socials, places where people can find you in the description of the episode as well. So, man, we appreciate you coming on, and have a good one.
You as well, man.
Yeah, man, thank you.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
See you, Bo.
All right. Good interview. Really good insight on a couple, you know, Hilltoppers. Obviously, we've got, you know, several guys. I think we have 9 or 10 guys that are eligible for the NFL draft. But, you know, we did revolve our talk around just, you know, Malachi Corley and Austin Reed. Those are the 2 most likely guys that have the potential, the ability to get drafted. I think we'll see several of our other guys that pick up undrafted free agent agreements and deals after the draft concludes. You know, we always see a flurry of those as soon as the draft gets over. You know, I think we got guys that are on the radar, you know, whether they end up playing in the, you know, NFL or a practice squad or going to one of the other, you know, leagues, the Canadian League or the XFL or whatever it is, wherever they land, they're going to get a chance to showcase their talents and possibly play at the next level and make a little money. But a real good interview. Good to hear a different perspective and point of view. Obviously, we're very biased when we're going to talk about Malachi. First round guy should be. Let's go to the Niners, and really show out. And then same with Austin Reed. We obviously think very highly of Austin, but it was nice to get an analyst perspective from an evaluation standpoint on what they're looking at with those guys' strengths and weaknesses, and where they might be expected to go in the NFL draft. But that will conclude this episode. We shared it on Twitter just a few days ago. We're recording on Wednesday. We did just pass our 1-year episode anniversary on the 14th, as we record today on the 17th. Our intro episode was just over a year ago now, and it's just crazy to think, we're 58 episodes in now. So just just a crazy and fun, exciting path we've had to get to where we are today. Just had a lot of good episodes, interviewed a lot of coaches and players. We talked about, on the Twitter post, we joined forces with the Red Towel Trust and became their official podcast. We joined the College Huddle community that we announced officially last episode. We are the WKU representative for that community of fan-driven podcast. There's going to be a lot of good stuff and content coming out with that. A lot of good collaborations, some live shows, and just really good networking opportunities and stuff that's only going to make us get better and our content get better as we align ourselves with other people and other podcasts that are, quite frankly, better than us, smarter than us, and going to help us get better. So we're looking forward to that and what it holds in the future. Obviously, as we move forward this spring and summer, we'll be ramping up and talking about football coverage going into June and July, revolving around when the Field Steel magazine comes out. We'll do our position breakdowns like always. But between then, May and June, hopefully we've got a lot of big plans, some interviews, some players, administration, etc., that we hope to be able to line up and just kind of fill that dead period of time during the summer when there's not any sports actively going on. Last year we took a little bit of a hiatus, didn't record for several weeks. But this year we're going to try to fill that time, that gap of no sports, and just, put some players' perspectives or coaches, administration, whoever we can get to join us officially. We look forward. We got some big plans and hopefully big goals of getting, some guys on here, some gals on here that can talk Hilltopper sports with us. Really looking forward to that. Obviously we've really enjoyed, this last year plus roller coaster now. The spring game is coming up this Saturday. I know both of us are looking forward to linking up there again, getting a sneak peek at this 2024 Hilltopper football team, looking at who may be QB1. Obviously we've got a battle going on there, trying to figure out who's going to be the starter versus Alabama. Just a lot of, excitement around that program and how good this team could be coming back with Coach Helton again. He always puts a good product on the field. So really, really looking forward to that. Enjoying, obviously, this podcast and just the weekly recording, just everything that we get to do and provide for the fans. So people that have been here listening since day one, new followers, new listeners, just everybody tagging along for this journey, man. It's been really, really, really fun. And, year 2 now that we're officially turning the page over into, really excited for what's going to come, in the next year. By the time we, get talking about a second full year, big plans, big stuff coming down the pipe, we hope. And we're just going to keep on trucking, keep moving, keep doing our best and putting out the best content possible for Hilltopper Nation. That's all I got. Tyler, hit us with your final words and take us on out of here.
I mean, I'm still waiting on my steak dinner, or at least be taken out to eat for the 1-year anniversary. I mean, I thought it was cool like that, but it's whatever, that's cool. I just got put on first shift for this. but no, I said it before a few times throughout this past year is fandom don't take no off weeks. Really, last year I know me and you had some vacations planned, Florida, overseas.
Germany.
Yeah. So, that really put a damper on the weekly recording. But I'm having a blast doing this. And if you look back from the first episode, and I was scared. I couldn't pass the peach pit if I wanted to. I was nervous as a dog passing the peach pit. To now, I'm probably still as bad, but I think I'm getting better. And if in your mind, if you get better, it's the only thing that matters. But no, I mean, this has been a blast. Like I said before, this is something I never thought I'd see myself doing. Just because I'm not much of a talker until I get to know people, kind of on the shyish side. But I mean, man, I've had a ball this past year with you. I'm glad people have came along for the ride. I'm grateful for y'all who listens, watches, shares all the stuff on social media, just anything that y'all do, interactions. On social media, I'm kind of a quiet dude, just like in real life. I'm real quiet. But if someone talks to me, I'm going to try to at least say something back. Try to have a little conversation. But no, I'm excited to see what this off season, all the interviews and with all the people that we get to talk to and question. I think the fans will appreciate it. At least get some insight on some stuff. But yeah, with that, I guess I'm going to say here's to year number 2, and Moff, who has it better than us?
Nobody, buddy. You already know
Cheers.
it. Go Tops.
Bucky's. Go Tops, y'all.
Later, guys.
See you.